This is the Everyday AI Show, the everyday podcast where we simplify AI and bring its power to your fingertips. Listen daily for practical advice to boost your career, business, and everyday life.
What a wild few days in AI. I mean, we got not only one, but two new AI models from Anthropic. Although one was technically older and it's going to be pretty much gone in like 100 hours, but who's counting anyways? So Fable 5 and Sonnet 5 should be on your testing list this holiday weekend. Oh, and you remember that whole OpenClaw thing that was the most popular open source software ever? Well, they had one quiet update this week that makes it probably like 5 times more useful than before. And do we finally have high quality educational brain rot videos? Is that a thing? Oof. A lot happening in AI this week. That's why we have our Friday features. Well, this time coming to you on Thursday because we have the extended holiday weekend in the US. So Everyday AI will be taking a break on Friday, but we'll be back on Monday. But long story short is we have our Friday features here on Thursday. So on today's show, here's what you're going to learn. You're going to know why Anthropic's most important update this week might not actually be Fable 5. You're going to know how your iPhone can now control unlimited AI models with multiple big releases. And you'll know the new AI video doom scrolling format that will actually help you learn things and make you smarter. Yay, brain rot that we can all actually enjoy. All right. Let's get into it. Welcome to Everyday AI. If you're new here, my name is Jordan Wilson, and we do this every day. It's your unedited, unscripted, live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping everyday business leaders like you and me not just keep up with all this AI craziness, but I tell you what matters, what doesn't, and you use that information like you're the smartest person in AI, because that's what you are if you listen and read every single day. So make sure if you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, and sign up for the free daily newsletter at youreverydayai.com. Each day we recap the highlights from today's episode, as well as all of the other AI news and developments you need to know to stay ahead. All right. So like I said, just FYI, normally this is our Friday AI features. This is where I tell you, here's AI you can actually use today, because so much of everything else that's happening in the AI world, it's, drama and the stock market and jobs and rumors. So on Fridays, I say, nope, here's the things you can actually go use this minute. So yeah, normally Fridays, but Thursdays, you get it. All right, but let's get straight to it. And we'll start with Anthropic's Sonnet 5. So this is Anthropic's most agentic Sonnet model yet, which was released this week. And according to benchmarks, it performs pretty close to Opus 4.8 at a lower cost. So it's about, on some benchmarks, it's about 63-ish% versus, Opus 69%. So, pretty high compared to Opus in terms of benchmarks. So some it's even ahead of Opus. So you could kind of think of this as like maybe a Sonnet 4.8, but it's Sonnet 5. Kind of confusing because now we have multiple tiers of models from Anthropic, all on different levels, because you still have poor Haiku, this fastest but least intelligent model, that's on 4.5. And then you have Opus, which used to be the most powerful, but now it's second in line on 4.8. And then you have what used to be the middle model, which is now the second in Sonnet on 5. And then you have Fable 5. So in order, yeah, if you're confused, all these new naming systems, right? We have all the new stuff from OpenAI. You have Sol, Terra, Luna, right? So here, we're going to go in order. I'm going to tell you the models. So Anthropic, from the least powerful to the most powerful, we have Haiku 4.5. Then we have Sonnet 5. Then we have Opus 4.8. Then we technically have Fable 5/Mythos 5, kind of the same models, one without guardrails, one with. So, all right. So let's talk about what makes Sonnet 5 good. So 1 million context win, right? That kind of seems to be the norm now. And that includes 128,000 tokens on the output. It has adaptive thinking on by default and a new tokenizer built in. So this is available for everyone. And when I say everyone, even if you're on the free plan, which is good. So, a lot of times on a free plan, you're getting a less powerful model. And it's one of the most common misconceptions in AI, right? I don't see it as much in 2026. But last year, I would still see like literally Fortune 500 level enterprise executives leading AI strategy, and they would log into a free, ChatGPT or a free Gemini or a free Anthropic account, and they would be testing things that way, which is the worst thing to do, by the way. But it's good now that Anthropic is upping their default free model to something on the 5 tier. It is a really good model. I've actually really enjoyed using Sonnet 5 more so than Opus and maybe even Fable. We'll get to that here in a little bit. So here's why it's useful. Well, you have Opus level agentic performance at Sonnet pricing. So the pricing, if you are paying on the API side, there's kind of this, discount pricing for a couple of weeks. So it's $2 per million in, $10 per million out. Then it goes up to $3 and $15. So if you are paying the bill, so to speak, right? So if you're not on a subscription, if your company is using Anthropic's models on the API side, Sonnet might actually be a good like delegator model, because with how freaking expensive the Mythos tier models are with Mythos 5 and Fable 5, you can't be using those things for everything, right? I'm even having to, shift my own usage just on the subscription plan, because you can't run, Fable 5 for everything. Yes, it's out. It's only a limited time, but you can't. So you do have to make smart decisions, whether you're on a subscription using Anthropic or you're on the API side. And I've really liked Sonnet so far. So it's cheaper than, Opus 4.8 with similar-ish performance. So I would slot it just below Opus 4.8, GPT 5.5, Gemini 3.1, Gemini 3.5, Flash. So it's kind of that tier below, but it's lower. Anthropic says lower sycophancy, lower hallucination rates, all those good things. So who's going to find this valuable? If you want a daily driver model you can afford to use in Anthropic, it is going to be much better. If you are on a $20 plan, a team plan, a $200 max plan that I'm on, you can't really use the big model much, right? The Fable 5. And it's going to be gone in a couple of days anyways. So this is a great, I think, everyday driver. And it's probably, even if you are comfortable using Opus 4.8, I'm sure we'll see an Opus 5 in the next, 3 to 6 weeks, something like that, depending on if it gets held up by the US government. But it might just be a good standard practice moving forward for Anthropic models to get used to using Sonnet, right? I think for the majority of knowledge workers out there, I'm not talking about software developers, people running extremely heavy agentic workloads, but for everyday usage, this Sonnet 5, I think, could become a de facto driver. I do think in the same way how, we are unfortunately in this new era of AI where large language models are no longer democratized, right? Not everyone in the world is going to have pretty much unlimited use of the best models like we've had up until, June 2025. So, we might have to also start shifting our usage accordingly. That's why I think Sonnet 5 is a great model. So who's going to find it valuable? So yeah, DevOps teams running agents at scale, because it is good for a lot of those lower hanging fruit agentic tasks, long running tasks. And then also, like I said, cost conscious API buyers. So if you want that more Opus class performance, but without the Opus pricing, there you go. Or if you didn't win the lottery and can't afford Fable, then, Sonnet is going to be your go-to. AI moves too fast to follow, but you're expected to keep up. Otherwise, your career or company might lag behind while AI native competitors leap ahead. But you don't have 10 hours a day to understand it all. That's what I do for you. But after 700 plus episodes of Everyday AI, the most common questions I get is, where do I start? That's why we created the Start Here series, an ongoing podcast series of more than a dozen episodes you can listen to in order. It covers the AI basics for beginners and sharpens the skills of AI champions pushing their companies forward. In the ongoing series, we explain complex trends in simple language that you can turn into action. There's 3 ways to jump in. Number 1, go scroll back to the first one in episode 691. Number 2, tap the link in your show notes at any time for the Start Here series, or you can just go to starthereseries.com, which also gives you free access to our Inner Circle community where you can connect with other business leaders doing the same. The Start Here series will slow down the pace of AI so you can get ahead. All right, let's keep it going. Next, brain rot that could actually be good for you. All right, this isn't really brain rot. And FYI, I am not a fan of scrolling vertical videos. When OpenAI came out with their Sora, I'm like, no, this is terrible. Please, I don't want this. I'm actually glad they killed it off. This one with NotebookLM, this might be doom scrolling that I will actually start to do. That's because NotebookLM has a new video format. It is, yes, vertical video, 60-second, and they're really good. All right, so this is a new studio output in NotebookLM, a 60-second vertical video generated from your uploaded sources with narrated explanations and animations. So this was just announced like a couple hours ago, alongside the new and powered by the new Nano Banana 2 Lite, which does power the visuals inside of this new 60-second vertical video format. So it is a shorter vertical sibling to NotebookLM's existing cinematic video overview. So that's the big difference here. So you've inside of NotebookLM with their video generations. They've always had the video generations, which are really, really good, by the way, but they upgraded using their, VO, or I guess now Omni technology, this cinematic level of video. So think the normal video overviews, great, but there's really not that cinematic feel. So this is the cinematic feel of the videos, but just short 60-second verticals. So obviously made for learning on the go. So I am not like on any kind of vertical video social media. I don't do it. I refuse to. That's why, like, when I'm looking at this, it's like I almost don't want to, but I've wanted something like this for a very long time. So I might actually finally be a short form vertical video consumer. So who has access right now? If you are a paid user, you should have access. So they did already start the rollout. I think I got access to this on some of my paid accounts, but not all of my paid accounts on Gemini. So if you are a Gemini paid user, you either have it now or it should be rolling out. So it is starting with users in English, and then it is rolling out to others in the coming weeks. So mobile and non-English rollout status isn't confirmed yet. So why is it useful? Well, it turns all your long source material inside of NotebookLM into these really cinematic, fun, and engaging, short 60-second videos. So NotebookLM, I cannot stop gushing about it, right? As much as I love Codex, as much as I, use Claude Desktop and all these other programs, NotebookLM is still one of my go-tos, right? One of my most used skills inside of Codex is having it make NotebookLM generations for me. So I can just wake up, open the app on my phone. If I'm out touching grass, taking a walk, I have literally so many, usually audio overviews, but sometimes video overviews as well, just bespoke with all the most pinpoint specific information I need to know for my day to learn different things. So it's great. So who's going to find this valuable? I think obviously NotebookLM power user, if you're an educator, a student of life, if you're trying to learn something new, this is great. But also this is good content for social teams. So if you're a marketer, these cinematic videos are amazing. I'm actually surprised when they were first announced, they didn't go more viral than they actually did. I think one of the reasons, which is a rollout strategy I've never quite understood, is they limited this to ultra subscribers when cinematic videos first rolled out. So this is cool that the 60-second versions, if you are on a normal paid Gemini plan, you should have access to this. All right, let's keep it going. Now you have a new financial assistant in your pocket. So our next Friday feature on Thursday is the ChatGPT Finance app that has now rolled out to Plus users. Yeah, speaking of that rollout strategy, same thing here. This is technically something that came out to Pro users on the $200 a month plan a couple of weeks ago. I don't think we really covered it much because I tend to not cover things if they're only on that, pricey $200 tier. I try to stick to things that are just on the base paid plans because I think that's what the overwhelming majority of, our listeners are on. So, what is the ChatGPT Finance? So this is built into ChatGPT, and it's OpenAI's personal finance feature that connects your bank and investment accounts via Plaid, and then you can ask finance questions grounded in real account data. So this was originally launched, like I said, mid-May, but it was pro only. But now it is available and live to anyone. If you are on that $20 a month plan, you've got it now in the US. So the original Pro launch covered web and iOS. I'm not sure if Android is out. So yeah, make sure to check in the newsletter for that and we'll let you know. So it is US only, like I said, and here's why I think it's useful. Well, you can just make your financial use of ChatGPT way faster and way more personalized. A couple things to keep in mind, because I probably hear what a lot of people are saying. Oh my gosh, I would never connect my financial data to any AI assistant, any AI account, right? So it's connected through Plaid, and Plaid is one of the most trusted, names in finance around. It's not like you're signing up for an unknown platform or bringing in, if let's just say you have a couple of retirement accounts, a couple of bank accounts, a couple of credit cards. It's not like you're bringing in, 5, 6, 7, 12 separate entities into ChatGPT and giving them all different permissions and you have to monitor them all. It's not like that. It just connects through Plaid. So it's already coming in through a trusted name. According to OpenAI, there's, data they just can't see, right? They can't see your full account numbers. There is no write access. That's the big thing, right? So it's not going to make any changes. So it can only read the information. It doesn't know your full account access, and it is all secure through Plaid. So here is what OpenAI said about it. They said today we're releasing, and this is from the original release, but they said today we're releasing a preview of a new personal finance experience in ChatGPT to Pro users, now out to everyone. Now you can securely connect your financial accounts, see a dashboard of where your money is going, and ask ChatGPT questions grounded in your financial context, all while staying in control of your data. So they say money touches nearly every part of life: where we live, what decisions we make, how we care for our loved ones, what future we might imagine. But managing finances today often means piecing together accounts, apps, cards, loans, and spreadsheets just to know where things stand. Then they say, with your financial apps accounts connected, ChatGPT can combine that reasoning with your real financial context and what you've shared about your goals, lifestyle, and priorities, helping you spot patterns, understand trade-offs, and plan for big decisions in a way that feels more personal and complete. Whether you're trying to plan, goals on your spending, travel spend analysis, your spending insight, scenario planning, investment risk, subscription reviews, whatever it is. So anything that you do give ChatGPT access to inside of Plaid, it can pull all of that information in. So not only can you interact with all of your finances in natural language, which is a big cheat code in and of itself, right? Because a lot of these applications do not have, many of them do, but not all of them have reasoning AI, right? You might be able to pull a certain number and ask it, what was my balance last month in this account, right? But many of them do not have AI that can reason over all of this data. So not only that, the ability to have a powerful reasoning model like GPT 5.5, but also that it can marry all of your other contexts, right? So your memory inside of ChatGPT and your chat history. So when you can throw those three things together, a reasoning model, well, four things, a reasoning model, your bank accounts, your all your financial accounts, then your chat history, memory. That's a huge unlock. So who's going to find this valuable? Well, I mean, I think this is big consumer play, right? If you've ever been a user of like a mint.com, right? There's these popular, personal finance apps, but like, let me just call it out. A lot of them cost money, right? I think that OpenAI is going to start winning and retaining a lot of consumer users just by replacing other subscriptions that people just used to pay for. As an example, I used to pay for Mint, and then it got to the point I'm like, why am I still paying for this? And now it's like, okay, well, this is going to be included in my subscription anyways. And it does bring in all of the other personal context that, ChatGPT has on me, which I'm going to love. All right. Our next one. This one might sound small, but I want you to think about what it unlocks, especially if you are a power Twitter user like me, right? This is where I get a lot of my, AI information. I follow the discourse of what's happening, online, in the AI space, mainly on Twitter, because that's where a lot of people are conversing about these things. So X, formerly known as Twitter, I still call it Twitter, launched their official MCP model context protocol server, letting all different AI tools connect directly to the X API. So this is big. So this is live right now. So, whether you want to, go through Twitter, if you have a bajillion bookmarks like I do now, you do have to load money into the X account. So this isn't something that's free, but it looks extremely affordable and cheap. And I'm going to tell you the reason why I think that. So you do have to, go through that step. So it's like, oh, bummer. You might spend a couple dollars a month if you're a heavy user. So you do have to go through, sign up for the X developer portal, go through all that hoops and all that. But then at that point, I mean, whether you're a Claude user, Cursor, if you're one of the 10 people using Grok build, Codex, whatever, anywhere that MCPs are supported, which is essentially everywhere, you can now scroll X and grab important information from there. So here is what was said in a TechCrunch article on this. So it says this allows developers to save time spent on integration work to focus on whatever they're actually building. So yeah, obviously, if you're trying to build something, this is helpful as well. So it says developers have long been able to search X, read posts, look up users, analyze conversations and trends, and do more using the platform's API. The hosted MCP doesn't add new capabilities on that front. It just makes them easier to expose to AI applications. So by doing so, X can position itself as an information network filled with real-time data to retrieve and analyze rather than just a social hangout. So for me, this is big. So why is it useful? Well, it removes the work that developers used to have to do themselves, because you used to have to build a custom MCP server, host it, wire it to the X API, all that stuff. Now you can set up an MCP server in like a minute, right? You can literally just give the URL. Once you go through and sign up for the developer account and authorize it, you just give the URL to Codex or Claude Code, and it does it all for you. So if you're a developer, you're going to find this valuable. If you're building social listening tools, competitive monitoring, research tools, security researchers, threat intelligence analysts, right? Essentially, if you spend time for your job on Twitter, right, following different conversations, what's happening in your industry, how are people reacting to certain things, and you are also a user of something like Claude on the desktop, Codex, etc. Bring those two things together. I do spend a lot of time on Twitter every single day. I'm bookmarking so many things. So this is one I'm actually excited for, because I'll spend way less time on Twitter, and I'm just going to have Codex go through and do all those things for me. So pretty exciting one there. Speaking of things you can hand off to others, well, now OpenClaw. Yes, you can talk with your OpenClaws without having to go on to Discord or Telegram or whatever it is. So yeah, now your OpenClaw is accessible on your phone. That's because OpenClaw the open source personal AI agent project launched its first official native mobile app for iOS and Android. So it is free on the Apple App Store and Google Play. You obviously, FYI, this is just a bridge. This is a remote, right? So it's not like you can skip the whole OpenClaw setup, which can be a little cumbersome, and it is a lot of maintenance to keep it up and working. I barely use OpenClaw anymore because, in my opinion, codecs can do just about everything. I even text my codecs. But if you are a heavy OpenClaw user, whether it's personally or your organization, I think this is a great new feature. So it is, like I said, it's not a standalone. It's just a companion node that pairs with your hosted OpenClaw gateway, wherever that is, right? So most people are using an actual dedicated machine, or if you're using a cloud server, whatever it is. And pairing is pretty easy. It's just a QR code, and then you set it up once, and then the gateway is running. So this is great because then you can monitor your OpenClaw activities without having to sit down in front of a computer. Or, I think what a lot of people were doing is they would just download Discord and then hook it up through Discord or all these other, third-party messaging platforms. So now you don't have to do this anymore. And you have a dedicated app that can do that for you. So who's going to find this valuable? Well, like I said, if you're already an OpenClaw user, or if you were on the OpenClaw fence and one of the biggest setbacks is, well, you wanted a way to be able to, check in on something locally, because that's the reality, right? OpenClaw is great. And the fact that you can say, oh, I have a, computer running somewhere 24/7, right? Like I do a lot of my work in my home office, but I have an actual office in Chicago as well. And that's where I had my OpenClaw. And if I'm being honest, I'm like, well, if I'm only in the office once or twice a week, it's like, do I really want to be, going in and, using Discord, which I don't really use anymore, right? Since Midjourney no longer required it like a year or so ago, I don't really use Discord. So it's like, do I want to be using another app just to be messaging? It's another communication channel that I just didn't want to take on. So maybe this might, get me to, re-engage my OpenClaw. Probably not, because I'm plenty happy right now with Codex and with Claude Code. But if this is something that you want to see more coverage on, let me know in the comments, and maybe we'll do something a little more dedicated. And the thing that a lot of people are wondering is like, how the heck did this make it onto the Apple App Store? Because they are extremely strict on allowing anything agentic. But the reason why is because, well, none of this is actually stored on your iPhone. The iPhone is just a bridge, and all of the data lives on your actual machine. So yeah, no, according to OpenClaw and a lot of the reporting, none of the data actually lives on your phone. So it is literally just a bridge or remote control to see what's going on and to be able to communicate with your claws in real time. All right, two more, and we'll make these ones quick, even though they're bigger ones. All right, next we have Cursor, released an iOS app. Yeah, like I said, the phones were getting all the love this week. So here's what's new. Cursor launched its first native iPhone and iPad app in public beta, and it is available now. So this lets developers launch and monitor AI coding agents from their phone, as well as their new popular always-on cloud agents, or just remote control of agents already running on their new computer. So who has access? Well, it's live now. It's in public beta on the App Store, and it is gated right now, obviously, to paid Cursor plans. So you have to have a paid Cursor plan for this to work. So why is it useful? Well, you can kick off or check agent work without keeping your laptop open, right? So no more walking around with your laptop half ajar like I used to do back in February with Codex. So now you can just have it all running from your phone. So this uses the iOS live activities and push notifications. So you're pulled back in when you want to, when an agent hits a blocker, or if it has a PR ready. It does also support voice input, screenshot annotation, as well as full diff review and PR merge from your phone. So here's who I think is going to find it useful and valuable. I think software engineers, obviously teams who are already using Cursor. If you're an on-call person who needs to triage or fix issues away from your primary machine, if you want to just go outside and touch grass, right? Or teams wanting a lightweight way to review and merge AI generated PRs without being at the desk. So here is what Cursor says. Cursor, in their blog post, said Cursor is now available as a native iOS app in public beta, so you can build from anywhere. Until now, developers have worked around the limits of their local machines, keeping laptops half open and caffeinated everywhere they go. Yeah, that one's fun because there's obviously a popular program called Caffeine that keeps your laptop awake even when it's closed. That's the joke there. With Cursor for iOS, you can launch always on agents in the cloud or control agents running on your computer from your phone. Kick them off when ideas strike, get notified when work is ready for review, and merge PRs on the go. Whether your agents are running on your machine or in the cloud, you can move work forward from wherever you are. So this really thrusts Cursor, I think, into serious consideration in the super app race, right? I think we're going to be talking about the super apps a lot more come like September. We should be hearing from OpenAI any day on their super app. Microsoft, alluded to their super app at the Build conference in San Francisco a few weeks ago. So yes, Cursor, I think between the SpaceX XAI acquisition. So the fact that they essentially have like unlimited compute now, number one, the fact that their last model they made, Composer 2.5, was actually really good and cost efficient. So you throw in those two things with now, I think they have a top two harness next to Codex. So the combination of a very good desktop app and now maybe the best iOS control pane, right? Inside of ChatGPT has a great remote control for Codex, but I think the Cursor might be a little bit ahead, mainly because you can start, new threads, then pick them up on your computer, start new cloud agents. So there are a couple of small advantages right now. I would say that Cursor has over Codex / ChatGPT when it comes to managing your local machine from your phone. All right, and then last but not least, the biggest story of, I don't know, the last month or so. Well, Anthropic's Fable 5 is back. Yay, right? Nah, probably not. All right. So I would say the overwhelming majority of our listeners are people who are on subscriptions. So don't get too excited on this because it's going to be gone in like 100 hours. And then you're going to have to pay for it out of pocket. So, but we've covered Fable 5 plenty, but let me just give you the update. And well, you can use it now, and you absolutely should, because it is going to be gone in about 5 days. So you should be using your entire week limits immediately to see if this is something that you are going to pay those actual bills for. So here is the newest update. So it said, as of today, June 30th, the export controls on Fable 5 and Mythos 5 have been lifted. Fable 5 will be available starting tomorrow. So this was from yesterday's blog post. So available, 2 days ago. It said Fable 5 will be available starting Wednesday, July 1st to users globally on the Claude platform, Claude.ai, Claude Code, and Claude Cowork. And then it says, for Pro, Max, Team, and Select Enterprise plans, Fable 5 will be included for up to 50% of weekly usage limits through July 7th, after which it will be available via usage credits. All right. And yeah, so essentially here, let me just tell you what happened. Right. There's all this drama that's been going on for the last 2.5 weeks. Anthropic has been hyping, Mythos and the Project Glasswing project since April, saying it was a bioweapon, essentially begging the federal government to, control AI. They said we need to pause AI. So they got what they wanted, and now frontier models are going through a delayed process to essentially get approved from the government, right? OpenAI had a limited rollout of their GPT 5.6. New models that are only available to trusted partners right now. So that's what started with Mythos and Fable 5. So Fable 5 is essentially Mythos 5 with added guardrails. So we got it for 3 days. It was pulled for 2 weeks. Now it's back. But for the majority of our listeners, if you're on a Claude subscription plan, you're only going to have it for about 5 days. So that's a big bummer. And there's essentially this thing called classifiers. And this is something that they put in guardrails to satisfy some of the US government's requests that this wouldn't be used in nefarious ways, right? But they are extremely overbearing, right? Anthropic even said in their post, to their credit, that these are going to take a bunch of prompts to Fable, and they're going to say, nope, you can't do it. And they're going to send it to Opus 4.8. So far, it seems like a lot of people are sour on Fable 5. I'll say just use it for what you can, use it while it's there, and see if it's going to be worth the price of admission. All right, so for just comparison here, let me just throw out a number. So yes, I'm a heavy-ish AI user, right? So inside of Codex, I use about 2.5 billion tokens a week. So we'll say that's about 10 billion tokens a month. Okay. And there's people who use way more, right? Because I'm not a coder. Yes, I'm building projects. I have automations and loops and all that good stuff. Right. But there's plenty of people in your organization that you're listening to who go through way more than 10 billion tokens. So if I'm paying for that via Fable 5, right, I'm paying $200 a month to do my, roughly 10 billion tokens, like I said, give or take, on Codex GPT 5.5 high. If I'm paying for that on Fable, because in 5 days, that's the only way you can use it, that's roughly, depending on the blend of, input, output, it's about $200,000 a month. Are people going to pay that? Yes. Is everyone going to pay that? Probably not. So like I said, I think you're going to have to get used to the new Sonnet 5 model, which I really like. I'm sure that we'll see an Opus 5 model pretty soon, but go play with Opus, for large organizations, that have monopoly money. Maybe Fable 5 is something you'll be able to use in the long run, but I think for most people, go have fun with it. You got 5 days, see what happens. All right. So that is a wrap on our AI features on Friday, on Thursday. I hope this one was helpful. As a quick rundown, here's what it is. Claude Sonnet 5 is out. It's good. I like it. NotebookLM short video overviews, cinematic brain rot that helps you learn. Not actually brain rot. It's really good. Then you have the new ChatGPT Finance for all plus users. You have the X/Twitter hosted MCP server. So essentially, I would have my agents doing computer use for that, which took way too long and a lot of tokens. So maybe my token count's going to go down. Then we had OpenClaw coming out with apps for iOS and Android. Cursor coming out with their iOS app. And then last but not least, Claude Fable 5 is back, but not for long. All right. If this was helpful, do me a favor, click that subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I'd appreciate that. Make sure you go to youreverydayai.com. As a reminder, the show and the newsletter will be off tomorrow. Happy early 4th of July. Yeah, we have the observed holiday this Friday. So I'll see you back Monday. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back then and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.
And that's a wrap for today's edition of Everyday AI. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a rating. It helps keep us going. For a little more AI magic, visit youreverydayai.com and sign up to our daily newsletter so you don't get left behind. Go break some barriers, and we'll see you next time.